Welcome to Echoes of the Past, the podcast where we explore the hidden histories of everyday technologies. I'm your host.
And I'm Ben. Today we're venturing into the vast, arid landscape of the Mojave Desert, not for its natural wonders, but for the stories hidden within its.
Alex. That's right, Ben. We're talking about telephones. It might sound mundane, but the history of telecommunications in the Mojave is a fascinating tale of railroads, secret military projects, and a very
Infrastructure. I have to admit, Alex, when you said we were doing a show on telephones in the desert, I was a bit skeptical. But the article we're discussing today, Longlines in the Mojave by J.B. Crawford, has completely changed my perspective.
famous phone booth. It's a captivating read. The author starts by painting a picture of the Mojave as a time capsule, where history accumulates due to the slow pace of change. And a big part of that history is the development of long-distance communication.
So, where does the story begin? How did the first telephones even get to the middle of nowhere?
The story begins with the railroad, the Los Angeles and Salt Lake Railroad, to be precise. In the early 20th century, they established a depot in a small town called Kelso. The railroad had its own private telephone system, separate from the bell system, but
So, the first phones in the Mojave were for railroad use only.
using similar technology. Exactly. They were used for dispatching trains and other railroad business. The article mentions a particularly clever invention at the Kelso Depot, a rotating cabinet that allowed the station agent to pass a telephone through the wall to someone in the lobby. This was a workaround for a security policy that forbade non-employees from entering the dispatch office.
That's a great example of practical innovation in a remote setting. What came after the railroad?
The 1920s saw a boom in long-distance telephone line construction. Pacific Telephone and Telegraph, a Bell system company, started building open-wire toll leads across the Mojave. These were the first public telephone lines in the area, and they were crucial for connecting Southern California to the rest of the country.
Railroad phones. And then came World War II, which, as the article points out, had a huge impact on the telecommunications landscape of the.
Massive impact. The military was concerned about the vulnerability of the existing telephone lines, which were mostly near the coast and could be easily sabotaged. So, in 1942, they embarked on a top-secret project called the Defense Backbone Route, or DBR.
Mojave, a secret telephone line in the desert? That sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It was a monumental undertaking. In less than a year, they built a 900-mile-long open-wire line that ran inland, far from the coast, making it much more secure. The DBR ran right through the heart of what is now the Mojave National
And this is where the story of the Mojave phone booth begins, right?
Preserve. That's right. In 1948, a single magnetophone was installed in the middle of the desert, connected to the DBR. It was for the use of a nearby mine, but it became a lifeline for the few people living in the area. The article describes how locals would leave a chair by the phone for people waiting for calls, and how they would take messages for their neighbors.
It's hard to imagine a single payphone being so important. But in that remote location, it was the only link to the outside world.
Phone booth gained a cult following in the 1990s, but its fame ultimately led to its demise. The Park Service removed it in 2000 due to concerns about the environmental impact of the increased number of visitors. Yes,
A sad end to a fascinating story. But the article doesn't stop there. It goes on to talk about the Cold War and the even more advanced telecommunications infrastructure that was built in the Mojave.
the L3I transcontinental telephone line. This was a hardened, underground coaxial cable that could carry thousands of calls and was designed to survive a nuclear attack. It was another massive project, and like the DBR, it was routed through remote areas to ensure its survivability. Exactly.
Mojave. And then there were the microwave radio systems, which added another layer of redundancy to the network.
The Mojave became a crucial hub for military and civilian communications, with multiple, overlapping systems designed to ensure that the lines of communication would always remain open. The article
So, what's the state of telecommunications in the Mojave today?
concludes by noting that despite all this advanced technology, the Mojave is still a remote and isolated place. Cell service is spotty, and there are few landlines. In a way, the desert has resisted being fully tamed by technology. And
It's a powerful reminder that even in our hyper-connected world, there are still places where you can truly disconnect.
that's what makes the story of the long lines in the Mojave so compelling. It's a story about technology, but it's also a story about the enduring power of the desert. That's all the time we have for today. Join us next time for another episode of Echoes of the Past.
Thanks for listening.